I've looked around the studio and collected a few more colored pencils, and that's what you're going to need for today, colored pencils. And I'm using Prismacolor colored pencils, and I'm also using Ticonderoga pencils. They are really good, especially the Prismacolor, because they have a little, it seems like they have a little wax in them or something, so you can actually put a lot of color on top to kind of make it look more like a painting. So these, if you do it right, you can actually do several layers, and as you're building up your layers, you can get darker or lighter. You can get, and by pressing down even harder, you can get lighter in an area, and you can get rid of all those white specks, and you can make it look very, very flesh tone like. So what we're going to deal with today, and what we're going to draw today, is this whole area of the mouth and nose. The nose is protruding out of the face, so it's going to have a lighter value than some of these areas in here in the socket area of the eyes. Last class we talked about the socket area, how the nose is really kind of a protruding kind of shape, and your eyes are more of like sockets that go into the face. And although they have lids that come out, your eyes, the white of your eyes are not so white. They're actually a little on the grayish side, a gray white. I'm working from this photograph right here, and I'm going to start by just starting to shade some of this area. Now I know that I'm going to use some orange and some pink and some violet just to kind of shade, and you're going to want to shade very, very lightly, keeping your lines close together. And my original line drawing is going to be a guide for me. I'm going to switch over to a pink. It's going to be a very fine guide for where the lines and the colors go. And I'm just doing this area. Now this area here of the nose, as you can see, is going to be a whole lot darker. So I'm going to get a little darker in here. And I'm putting this pink over the orange to try to create a pinkish orange. And it's not dark enough, so I'm going to darken as I go along. I'm going to gradually darken the whole area like that. And this is going to also kind of blend into this a bit up here so that there's a real light on the nose. And go down through here. And this whole area is going to be very, very dark, the nostril. Now the nostril needs to be done like a cave, where it's dark to light, and so you lighten up on your pencil, don't press down so hard, and then when you get up into this area, you press down very, very hard, right up into here, and really light here. So it looks like it goes from light to dark. That's going to be a very effective tool for realism whenever you go from light to dark. I'm going to use some pink in there, and I'm going to use some darker color in this one. It can be any darker color, doesn't have to be black. It could be even a dark, like this color here is a dark blue. And with the color in there, the orange and the red, it actually reads as a dark black. I'm going to also frame out the nose really well with that same color. There, it's a blue, and it looks very strange that there's a blue on this side, but it's going to be setting me up for the right value. It's the right darkness, but not the right color. So it's okay to focus more sometimes on the value, which is the lightness and darkness of a color, rather than the appropriate color, because you can always go back and add like a red to that, and maybe even a little more black to neutralize that more. And by the way, black has all the colors in it, and particularly black has blue in it. So it's going to complement, and this particular black feels like it's more of a brownish black. There are different types of black. I also want to make my nose darker black right up in here, and so that it really starts to look like it's a nostril. Now that lightened up this area almost too much, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to darken even more this area in here. So this is going to get a darker tone. So to kind of augment which means bring out and complement the nose even more. Remember, what we're doing today is honoring ourselves, honoring through portraits, honoring our image of ourselves, and thinking about what is our story in life, what will be our story, and what is it that we want to tell people, what is it that we want to share. And that's a really great thing to focus on, especially as we're contemplating and drawing and trying to make this look like ourselves. Today, I hope you'll get lost in your art for this time that we have together. I'm going down to skip down to, now that the nose looks pretty good. It's not finished, of course. You've got finer details I can do on it, but I'm going to come back to that. And what I'm going to do right now is go down to the mouth. Now, the thing about the mouth is it really does have a dark area. Particularly, my photograph has a very dark black area where there's really no light right there. So this is the opening of the mouth. And the greatest thing about the mouth that you need to understand is that the corners of the mouth, when the actual portrait is tilted like this, the mouth has to be tilted too, but your pupils actually line up to the corner of the mouth in that same axis. So if your axis is this way, you have to just slide that and you'll find that the corner of your mouth is right there, the corner of your mouth is right there. So finding the corners of your mouth, check that please with your drawing, and if that's off a little bit, it would be worth changing because it'll greatly make your drawing look a whole lot better. I'm going to make this really dark. This is the opening of my mouth, so I don't expect that to receive a lot of light. It's not really the opening, but it's where the shadow meets the opening. And I'm going to make that even darker and colder by adding blue. Then I'm going to do this upper part with a little bit of blue lips, and that's way, way, way too blue. So I'm going to pink it up a bit. Adding pink to the purple violet. We'll pink that back to where it looks good. And I'm going to use a kind of red-orange now to go over the whole thing and do the final colors. Now the final color looks pretty good like this. So those are 3 colors I used, and I think you want to get into the habit of using 2 or 3 colors all the time when you're actually making the lips. Now I'm surrounded by a lot of hair around my mouth, which is my beard, and I'm going to use different gray colors, and these gray colors will be I'm going to use pink and blue. These 2 colors make a beautiful silver, so I'm going to start coloring in some of these dark areas in here, and I want to kind of really bring out just underneath my lip. Here's my lip right here. I'm going to lighten that just a little bit with a light yellow ochre. So this is going to receive the same amount of light as the top of my nose. So I really don't want to get it too dark at all. And I want to keep that light white, so I'm going to add white over it. So this is where the white comes in, and I'm pressing down really super hard so I can transfer that just to get a little bit of a tone, but not much more than that. And then I'm going to come out of my mouth right about here with some darks. And this is where my beard is. And I have all of these hairs coming out of that. It might be hard for some of you to honor yourself, or just to think of how beautifully and fearfully awesome you're made. And it might be something, maybe this is the first time you've ever drawn yourself. Maybe you've thought you weren't beautiful, but when you actually look at yourself, you can realize there's great beauty there. And that's not a bad thing to like how you look, and we spend an awful lot of time making ourselves look great. We look at ourselves in the mirror hundreds of times in a year, so why not draw ourselves? Why not honor ourselves in a drawing? At least when we try to do a drawing, it's a whole lot of fun to try and make it look like ourselves. And remember, our assignment is to make a portrait that addresses who we are and what our story is about. So I'm actually coloring in right now parts of my beard, and this half is going to be in light, so I'm not going to shade that too much. I'm going to shade all of those areas. And I use, in my hand, I usually have 3 to 4, even 7 or 8 colors. I even have a gray here that I kind of scrounged around the studio until I could find it. It's kind of a greenish gray, and I kind of like it, so I was kind of glad to get it. It's a very unusual kind of gray, and I'm finding it's not working that well, but you never know until you try. And right here, as those hairs come in, right there, it gets a little darker. That's going to bring out my beard even more. And I'm going to use a very, very light yellow here. Just using the side of it. And I'm going to use a very, very light pink. That's going to neutralize the yellowness of it. And let's see, get to here. Like that. You can see where the corner of my beard is. My mustache area. And I want right in here to be a little darker. This is where you have that kind of indentation, and it's usually right under your nose, right there. You have an indentation here, and even if you have hair there, you're still going to have an indentation. You're still going to have a little bit of a shadow. And you can see I have that right there. So I'm going to put that in. Like that. And this is where I'm going to want to shade too, is out here. I'm going to bring out the nose. Keep your lines really close together. It doesn't have to take a long time to shade. It just, you don't want to have to skip when you're shading, because you have to go back in and get those areas and make them darker or whatever. You don't want to have to do that. Right here on the nose, it's going to be really dark. And it's really going to be darker than that. But I want this to be lightly put down. So I'm letting up on the pressure of the pencil. And I'm creating this shadow on this side of the face. Now this is the inside of my cheek, right in here. And here's where I'm going to show you that as I actually press down, you can get really, really dark with that. And the more layers you put down, the more you can press down hard to create this kind of painted look, and it really pulls out my mouth really nicely. I'm going to continue to do darker shaded areas right underneath my lip. Now right underneath your lip, you're going to have a darker area because that's not receiving as much light. And then next time, So as I continue all of this and get darker in here, I'd like to have you finish this part too. If you can finish your mouth area, that would be fantastic. You can see I did a little more around my eyes, and you can do that as well. You need to do out here. Next time, we'll be talking about how you do eyes and shade them in, and some of the proportions involved in not only eyes, but ears, mouth, and where the forehead is. Notice one thing about the portrait. When you actually go like this and like that the eyes are in the middle of the head. And this is about 1/3 of, is where about 1/3 of the painting, 1/3 of the whole face is where your mouth is located. So, and you can be a little off on some of these things, but you want to be really close too, because the closer you get with these proportions, and it's true for most faces, the better off your painting is going to be. So for next class, let's see if we can't finish some of this. I'll do some more, and we'll see you at next class. We're going to talk about finishing up on the ears and the hair.